Okay, it's 6:10 and just gonna do roll call. Make sure we have a quorum this evening. Carrie? Here. Eric? Here. Scott? Here. Francine? Here. Daisy? Here. Myself, Sonia, present. That's 6 of us. We have a quorum. And I just need a motion now to adjourn to executive session for the purpose of discussion on the acquisition of property. Motion, anyone? Carrie, thank you. Second. Eric, thank you. All those in favor? 6-0, motion passes. We're off to exec. Thank you. Okay. We're returning from executive session. I just need a motion to open up our public session here. Anyone? Carrie, thank you. And a second. Eric, thank you. All those in favor? We are all present. 7-0, motion passes. We are back in open session. Okay, if we can just stand for the pledge. So this evening, our administrators will be sharing all their updates during the presentations and discussions coming up later. And just briefly for myself, I'll just share on behalf of the board that we had a retreat for the community. We had a retreat last week. The days are just a blur. And it went great. We actually ran out of time. So we're going to do part 2 on that in April. We're just going to finalize the date, I think, and continue our part of the equity work as well from the board's perspective. And yeah, so we'll continue that work in April. I just wanted to give that update to the community. So we can actually go to our student representative if Diana's on this evening. Hi, welcome.
Hello. Thumbs up if you can hear me. Awesome. Okay. Lots of good things happening right now. Our first football practice was yesterday, and the players are all really excited to be back and playing again, which is awesome. Similarly, we are really happy to announce that the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee, the performances are coming up in April. There will be 2 performances on the 17th, and then additional performances on the 15th and 16th. They will all have their capacity set at 50. They're practicing really safely, and we are so excited to see that come into fruition. We are also, there's talk about the reopening plans for a 5-day in-person instruction after spring break. So more info on that is forthcoming, but we are looking forward to seeing everybody again. We have scheduled prom for June 15th at the Amber Room in Danbury, which is also very exciting. Senators Harcum and Mayer will be visiting Brewster High School and Wells Middle School students on March 19th at 1 p.m. So this is a really great opportunity for students to learn a little bit more about their representatives. There is currently a pen pal program being set up between Brewster High School and JFK students, specifically between seniors and second graders by Democratic Congress, where we want to create more of an atmosphere of community. So we're having some little pen pal letters sent back and forth. So that is in coordination right now. There is also a new music program in the works from Miss Perdigo, which is partnering Brewster High School students with younger students in lesson in the 4th and 5th grades for music lessons, which is all very exciting. So thanks for having me. That's what I got.
Thank you so much. That was perfect. Okay. We now move on to presentations, recognition, discussion, and first up is district highlights. Dr. Banlow?
Okay, thank you, Ms. Masika. Tonight we have 2 special presentations for the board. Our first, we have our principal, Mrs. Maggie Andriello of CV Star, and she's going to share their STEAM program at CV Star. Mrs. Andriello?
Hi, good evening. Thank you. Tonight I'm here to highlight the CV Star Virtual STEAM Expo, which will be taking place later this year. I am joined by Jackie Fago, who is a 3rd grade teacher and also our building science liaison. This will be our 3rd year that we are hosting our STEAM Expo. And while the Expo is still quite new for us, its roots go back for quite some time. Prior to 2019, CV Star always hosted a more traditional science fair. Our 4th and 5th grade students would pose a question, create a hypothesis, and then conduct an experiment to test their theory. But during the 2018-2019 school year, our teachers began to look for ways to broaden the scope of the science fair and also to involve more of our students. Mr. Whalen, could you cue up our slideshow right now, please? Perfect. And we can advance to slide 3. Excellent. All right, I'm going to hand it over to Mrs. Fago right now so she can give you a little bit about the background to this amazing event.
Hi, hopefully everybody can hear me okay. So in 2019, we started talking about the fact that our program, our science program, Project Lead the Way, really focused on problem solving and solving problems within a community. And we thought that was a perfect segue into doing a STEAM Expo. So the focus of the Expo is problem solving and looking for ways to improve things within the community. Our first year, we had, we also, by the way, added in the art. We didn't just do STEM, we did STEAM because of the amazing art program that Mrs. Michelini has led at CV Star. And we wanted to make sure we gave an opportunity to showcase that as well. So our first year, we had over 60 STEM inventions and innovations. We had over 100 students, grades 3 to 5 participating, and we had artwork from every CV Star student and an awesome creative arts exhibit from the team that had participated in the Creative Arts Challenge. You'll see here some pictures. We had the STEM portion of the expo up at the middle school gym, and you'll see here the students, their displays. We had the artwork all displayed in the CV Star gym. So people were able to go from one room to the other to experience the event.
Mr. Whalen, you can go ahead to the next slide, please. So obviously our intention last year was to host this event again, and our world changed overnight. And very quickly, we needed to make a decision. Do we just cancel or postpone our expo, or was there another avenue for us to explore? And all credit goes to Mrs. Fago, Mrs. Michelini, and Mr. Koschel, one of our 5th grade science teachers, because very quickly, literally probably within about a week to 2 weeks, they had come up with an idea to host this amazing event virtually, knowing it wouldn't be the same, but still finding a way to capture the essence of it and make it really special and important for our students. And so, Mr. Whalen, could you just actually click on that other website? I just want to show you a little glimpse of what the CV Star, the virtual website. Mrs. Michelini created an entire website dedicated to this event, and students were able to actually post their picture of themselves, a video of themselves explaining their project, and give a little biography about themselves as well. Mr. Whalen, could you just click on STEAM Third right at the top in the black menu box? And if you could just scroll down a little bit. So each student or group of students, because you could work as a team, was able to submit their project and explain it to us in their words. And this website was available to all of our families at CV Star so that everybody could take a virtual walk through these amazing projects. I think it went beyond our wildest expectations. It was absolutely phenomenal, and our students blew us away with everything that they did. Mr. Whalen, you can go ahead to the next slide back on this slideshow, please.
So this year, we are obviously going virtual again. Hopefully next year we'll be back in person, but for this year we're going virtual as well. We just launched this out to the students, and we've already had at least 10 students sign up within a few days. Science teachers are starting to talk it up, and we're really seeing a lot of excitement for the children. Again, the focus being on solving a problem. So it's a great program. They're really excited about it. There's so much enthusiasm, and we hope that everybody in the community takes the opportunity to explore on June 14th, the Expo, virtual Expo STEAM website.
Mr. Whalen, can you go ahead to the final slide, please? Thank you. So we would be remiss if we didn't give a huge thank you to our PTA, because they have provided our STEAM t-shirts, which are a source of immense pride for our students and our staff. They have provided the t-shirts to our students both years and again for this year, and just a little collection of all of our great artists and inventors from last year and some staff thrown in there as well. We are excited to have this happen again this year. Like Mrs. Fago shared, we hope that we're back together next year for it, but we can't wait to see what our kids do this year. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mrs. Andriello, we just want to thank, on behalf of the board, we want to thank you and your team at CV Star for the work that you're doing, the innovative work that you're doing on behalf of our students. And Ms. Basika, did you want to add anything?
Just simply that it's amazing to see how, you know, our teachers and just come together and trying to come up with creative ways to keep going forward, despite anything put in their way. And it's so great that the kids still were able to participate. And I love that. And I know it makes us all happy that, you know, to see that kind of commitment. So just thank you.
Huge thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, we're moving on now.
So now
to,
we're gonna-
the COVID update. Okay, go
And
ahead.
actually, we have another presentation.
Oh,
This is
oh,
another
absolutely.
special presentation. We're moving on to Brewster High School.
Okay.
We have a special announcement tonight, so I'd like to introduce our Brewster High School principal, Ms. Nikki Horler.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having us. So one of my favorite days at Brewster High School is Thursday. Thursday, for those of you who don't know, is the day that all of our ROTC students are dressed in full uniform. It reminds me that so many of our students have a safe and comfortable place to land and be welcomed on a daily basis. This is the program that allows for equity and inclusivity throughout the building. It focuses on ensuring that all students can be successful at Brewster High School and the world after high school. Our ROTC program at Brewster High School started in 1983, and for the last 18 years, Commander Wadelick has been at the helm. Unfortunately, this is Commander's last year since he will be retiring in June. He will be missed, sorely missed by everyone. Master Chief Campbell started Brewster High School in our ROTC program last year, but it feels like he's been a part of our group for many, many years. He quickly embedded himself into the ROTC program and Brewster High School and has made a noticeable difference. Together, they've built up the program, a program that is just won accolades throughout the country, and we hope that this will continue for many years. So on that note, Commander, Master Chief.
Thank you, Mrs. Horler. Well, good evening. I am Commander Earl Wadelick, and along with Master Chief Mike Campbell and the cadets of Brewster High School, NJRTC, we want to thank the district administration and the Board of Education for inviting us here to tell you the story of our recent annual Navy inspection, the results of which we just recently received. For those of you who may be unfamiliar with this required yearly inspection, and though the cadets may disagree and tell you it's the military ball, the Navy clearly inspection phase, although we will provide breaks, certainly. Following this, we move to a ceremonial phase, which the parents and the guests may attend. At that ceremony, the cadets, with much pomp and flair, demonstrate what they know of military marching drill and close with a pass and review honoring the inspecting officer. Throughout this event, military marching music is provided by our high school wind ensemble, which is always a hit with the inspector and the audience. You're probably by now getting the idea that this event, it has a lot of moving parts and requires a lot of coordination with different organizations, and you'll be right on with that. Following those just two events, the ceremony and the inspection, we're not
Commander, your audio is cutting in, out.
Can anybody hear me? I understand my microphone might have went out.
Yes,
You can hear me.
yes.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Thank you. This presentation is done without the prop of either myself or Master Chief, and gives the inspector the sense of how well the staff prepared, demonstrates how well they know the unit and the unit goals and their plan for getting through these unit goals. And all this is followed by an inventory accuracy check of Navy provided equipment and uniforms. Our supply inventory in the high school is in excess of $50,000 of Navy provided equipment, and they want to make sure that we have it all. So they go through that piece by piece. When all these checkpoints are completed, a debrief is held and the inspection is completed. Brewster NJROTC has traditionally performed well each year at this inspection, but this year there was a twist due to COVID. Cadets had to conduct this inspection, had to cover every area, but we had to do it virtually. So our challenge was how to do this. When we have to do this. Oh, that's not fun. I'm gonna go back one.
I'm ready to relieve you. I'm ready to be relieved. I relieve you. I stand relieved. Return.
Are you there, Commander?
Yes.
We can hear you.
I'm sorry, say again?
You're good.
All right, so since this inspection is partly about in what can be a stressful situation, we brought in our new command staff led by Cadet Commanding Officer Clarissa Cuomo and ably assisted by Cadet Executive Officer Samantha Ferrara and Cadet Master Chief Sarah Luby, presented the challenge to them. They gave us their immediate buy-in, accepted the challenge, and they set out to prepare a plan of action and enlist the aid of key assistants to begin preparing for what turned out to be an unusual and hopefully once only virtual annual inspection. Now on task, our senior command staff identified other key players and enlisted their support. Our operations officer, Cadet Jesse Fry, took the task of coordinating and scheduling the events that had to happen to conduct this inspection. And she turned over the making it happen part to our First Lieutenant, Cadet Mike Denninger. As key players were identified and milestones were met, a key element that had to be defined and integrated into the plan was how to conduct the virtual aspect of this inspection. Connectivity was tested and retested. Students had to be able to show off their uniforms, demonstrate knowledge of NJROTC curriculum, and for a couple of randomly selected cadets, demonstrate in-place movement and in-place drill. All of these were first ever events and the students performed well. You kind of a sense of what this might have looked like to the inspecting officer. Entire unit in the different areas are evaluated. In the area of school system support, which includes compliance with the terms of our contract between Brewster Central School District and the Navy to have this program, we scored an outstanding. I want to give a shout out here to our high school administrators, Principal Nikki Horler and Assistant Principals Carlos Rodriguez and Lauren Cole for their support and understanding as we press forward with this inspection. The next area, program administration, encompasses care and use of equipment, cadet awards and recognition, participation in community events, field trips, and our team participation. We scored outstanding. In academics, this inspector will ask the student curriculum knowledge questions, and their response and how they answer these questions is one measure of myself and Master Chief's performance, and we scored an outstanding. So when we run an NJRTC package and the whole unit, it's an enormous administrative task, one that, you know, a lot of people don't get to see how much actually goes into this. They look at property and clothing inventory for accuracy, fiscal management of Navy funds, timely submission of a myriad of required reports. Our supply and administrative departments under Cadet Heaven Ortiz put a lot of effort into making this work and was rated outstanding. On this day, the cadets are inspected in uniform for completeness and attention to detail. Their performance of military drill is evaluated. This year was particularly difficult as so much of what had to happen in this category, including the training, had to be done remotely. Still, under the direction of our cadet platoon commanders, Fenton Cassidy, Mike Brill, Maddie Matson, Emily Monaco, Emily Racinko, Haley Sudall, and our drill team commander, Sarah Constantino, cadets were able to pull together and complete this requirement. Our score, outstanding. You getting it? You getting a sense of this? An additional category is mentorship. This is another grade that really is for me and Master Chief. They look at how we prepare the cadets for the inspection, how we monitor them as we go through the year, and really after they leave the high school, we keep a thread with them, and other events throughout the whole year. Our score, outstanding. And then finally, an overall grade is assigned. In this inspection, a satisfactory grade would suffice for people. It's important to pass. And part of the reason is if you don't, they come back and look at you again, and no one wants that. So finally, though, this year you can see the grades we got, and our overall grade was, again, outstanding. We really had a great day. The cadets
Commander, your audio cut out. Just gonna ask if you can say that last part again.
I just want to thank everybody for letting us tell you our story.
Master Chief, Commander, Principal Horler, congratulations on behalf of the board. And Ms. Basika, did you want to add anything?
Just thank you for sharing all that. It's again always amazing to watch and see how great our students perform. And obviously it's with your guidance and instruction as well that they were able to execute so well. So thank you to you and to all the students that participate.
You're welcome.
More? We're good? Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for just Dr. Banlow for continually arranging presentations and highlighting the great things that are going on in our district. I think we forget there's so much chaos in the world that just continues. So it's just great to be reminded that despite all that, our kids are finding ways, our teachers are finding ways and doing great things. It's great for us to see in the community as well. Just want to say thank you. Okay, so now we move on to our COVID update, Dr. Banlow and Dr. Gosh.
Okay.
Okay.
I think we have a PowerPoint for tonight, so Dr. Gosh, and I'll jump in there periodically.
All right, good evening. Thank you for this opportunity to share our progress regarding the increasing the amount of in-person instruction for our students. So the first slide details our testing results from March 1st. We were able to test 140 students and staff. One of those test results came back positive, leading to an infectivity rate for this particular percentage of population that was tested at 0.7%. With our overall infectivity rate from 818 tests that we have administered since January throughout the various testing cycles at a 0.24%. So we once again share our sincere gratitude with our nursing staff for their professionalism and good care of our students and staff. We also wish to again acknowledge our support staff, especially Anne Marie Chalmers, who made the testing administration run like a well-oiled machine. At this point in time, we are recommending a pause of our testing program with the possibility that we may need to revisit this again as we increase the number of students in our building on a daily basis.
Dr. Gosh, can I just jump in real quick? I forgot to. I just want to let Mrs. Cunningham know and Ms. Masika that any emails that we received related to COVID will be covered in our presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Benlaw. All right, the next slide is a graphic that reminds us of the subcommittees that began meeting again. So at February 23rd Board of Education meeting, we said that we were going to re-engage these what were previously re-entry subcommittees that helped us prepare so well for September, now to shift their focus into looking at their particular area of expertise and using that lens towards increasing in-person instructional time. What are some things and some issues that we need to think through in order to create the best learning environment for our students? The facilitators of those subcommittees met late last week to share out and identify areas of priority as well as areas of overlap. And we're not going to go through each subcommittee, but we would just like to highlight a few things. The Teaching and Learning Subcommittee overwhelmingly had a strong consensus that we increase in-person instruction time for students, as well as really highlighting the need to pay specific attention to the status of each student and the progress that each student is making in relation to grade level and content standards. And ideas about one way that we can sort of keep that at the forefront will be highlighted in our presentation for the 21-22 budget. The Social Emotional Learning Subcommittee also met. It was a feeling of this subcommittee that we are very much dealing with a mental health crisis inside of this pandemic. So we need to be as intentional about the mental health and social emotional well-being of our students as we are about their academic growth and achievement. And we will also share some more thoughts on how we are approaching that in the 21-22 budget presentation. One other subcommittee that happened to meet was the Bilingual Education Subcommittee. And whether it was parents that speak primarily English or Spanish, the concerns are the same. We're worried about the academic and social emotional well-being of our students. And we feel as though increasing the amount of in-person instructional time for students and their parents who wish for their students to be here, we want to make sure we do everything that we can to support them in this journey. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Carlson, who's going to give some updates on health and safety.
Chris, next slide, please. So the Health and Safety Committee met to review CDC guidelines and specifically the recommendations the CDC has for implementing mitigation strategies. It's recommended that multiple mitigation strategies be put in place and layered. More specifically, they asked to focus on two specific strategies, one being physical distancing and the other being mask wear. So naturally, we've already conquered the mask wearing mitigation technique. We're now implementing barriers. So further, New York State provided a clarification on their guidance that allows us now to utilize barriers when 6 feet of social distancing is not practical. Next slide. So here is an example of what a barrier looks like. We've placed our order and we're anticipating that they'll be delivered within the next few weeks. Initially, when we met as a group, we anticipated middle and high school students traveling with their barriers. That is what we were told from some other school districts that had already returned to in-person instruction. Subsequently, our principals reached out to those other districts and they then recommended that the barriers be stationary. So we pivoted after our original thinking. Barriers will be stationary at all desks, at all buildings. They'll be cleaned each night. Next slide. So adjustments for in-person environment. Again, masks and barriers are a must. There will be mask breaks as there are currently. Of course, we're going to be increasing our spacing between individuals when we're taking those mask breaks for lunch or snack. Of course, with the warmer weather coming upon us, we're going to look to increase our use of outdoor spaces. We're also going to continue to keep our windows open and have our air circulating within our classrooms as much as possible. Next slide. In terms of transportation, obviously we're going to be increasing capacity on the school buses. So we're increasing the number of students per seat. Of course, children of the same household will be sitting together. Of course, masks will continue to be worn, and just like in the classrooms, we're going to make sure that all windows and hatches are open as they have been all school year long. There will be assigned seating, and that was a recommendation from the health department, which will assist in contact tracing if necessary. And of course, all of this is outlined in our letter from last week. It's important for parents and guardians to provide their survey responses with regard to transportation needs so that we can continue to finalize our transportation routes.
Dr. Gosh, can I just jump in here? There was a couple of emails I want to make sure that have to do with health and safety. So one question was about face masks, and we did look into that. There's nothing at this point from the New York State Department of Health or State Education Department in writing regarding face shields for students. So we did send a question up there through our contacts. So if we hear anything, we'll keep the board updated regarding that. Also, I'm just happy to report that our school physician, our board attorney, the Putnam County Department of Health met with the entire executive team, and they were very supportive of our plan moving forward. So we want, safety and of our staff and students is of the utmost importance to all of us. Thank you, Dr. Bosch.
Thank you, Dr. Bama. And we have some additional information on quarantines. We rightfully so have received some inquiries from parents as to what quarantining would look like now with more students physically present. So Mr. Whalen, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide. So here's a couple of reminders. So quarantine is a legal requirement, which is imposed by the Putnam County Department of Health. We are the conduit. We are the ones that do case investigation in the school. We share contact information with the Department of Health. And then we do the primary notifications to parents and guardians because we can do it more quickly than they can. So I just wanted to state that. So there's no getting around this, right? And not that we want to get around it. We want to do what's safe. It's important to know that it is likely that if students return for in-person instruction and you put more students in the same physical space, the probability that someone is infectious increases, right? And you're putting more people into the same space. So that social density increasing means that the chances naturally increase that someone is infectious in that space. It's not a guarantee or it's not a definite, but it's a probability. We also know that if you have, and when I get into proximate and close contacts, this will probably make more sense, but when you have more students in a closer space, so now we have, because of the barriers, we're able within the guidance to bring students in, but now we have more students that potentially could be close contacts. So when it comes down to close contacts, that's open and shut. There's no wiggle room when it comes to what that looks like. But we just wanted to put that out there for parents. Quarantining still is very much a reality. And as we increase the number of people in one learning, in a given learning space, the probability for quarantine increases. Now, with that said, if we can go to the next slide, I just want to explain how the Putnam County Department of Health has been working to clarify guidance, to refine guidance based on what is very much an evolution and a journey throughout all of this. So I mentioned the close contacts. When I say close contact, those are individuals that are 6 feet or less for 10 minutes or more near an infectious person. The second type of contact is proximate contact. So those are students or individuals that are still greater than 10 minutes, but also greater than 6 feet. So close contact, like I said, we are now probably going to see more close contacts, but not as many proximate contacts because of the adjustments that have happened in the guidance. So we can go to the next slide, Ms. Whalen. This is a very rough graphic that shows sort of what we're saying. So if student X is the infectious individual, that square around the 4 circles shows the individuals that would be 6 feet or less from that infectious person. Those students are close contacts. As long as they have been in close contact for more than 10 minutes, they need to quarantine. The next slide shows proximate contacts. So these are the students that are in the yellow area. So this is where the circumstances of each individual situation need to be taken into account. Proximate contacts is where the Putnam County Department of Health has, worked with us again to refine the guidance and to basically consult with us on each individual case since this clarification has come out. So when we get into a situation where you have an infectious individual in a learning space, then we know if there are individuals who are close contacts, because those individuals didn't exist before because we had social distancing. So that's the shift. But the other shift is that proximate contacts are now up for interpretation based on the circumstances. So the questions, if you wouldn't mind, Mr. Whalen, on the next slide, some of the questions that they're going to ask the Department of Health: was there airflow, right? So not was the window cracked open just a little bit, but were they wide open, and was there air exchange? So you might see letters from classroom teachers or from principals saying, asking you to dress your son or daughter warmly because they might be near an open window. Hopefully, as the weather gets warmer, that will not be as much of an issue, but we need to make sure that there's air exchange in order to have another mitigating factor for having to quarantine and decreasing the likelihood of transmission. What was the duration of time? So 60 minutes seems to be a number that the Department of Health works off of. If there's a situation where it's less than 60 minutes, that's better than more than 60 minutes. Just had a conversation with the Department of Health this afternoon before coming over here. We currently have high school classes of 66 minutes. That wouldn't be a deal breaker. But if you have 2 classes with an infectious person or a science lab, that would then take you over the sort of the benchmark and say, okay, we need to notch up the seriousness of, or the potential that the students in that class would be proximate contacts. We're mask worn at all times, both by the infectious individual and by the other people in the learning environment. And then what type of activities were conducted in the class? So if there was a lot of movement, if it was a physical education class where students are constantly moving around and maybe perspiring, was it a situation where they're jumping up and down and dancing? Those are all things that need to be taken into account. So this is the big change. Before, proximate contacts were, you're in that learning space for more than 10 minutes, you're all quarantined. Now it's, well, what are the circumstances within each of these individual, again, learning spaces or classrooms that then need to get translated into whether or not students would have to quarantine or individuals would need to quarantine. So it's not there are very few absolutes I found in throughout the last year, and I can't give an absolute answer to this, but I can at least give the criteria and the questions that we would need to run through in each individual situation when presented with an infectious individual in school. So the next slide just runs through as a reminder for the timeline. When 2 weeks ago were here, we had hoped to be able to give you an update on what K-5 would look like. We're happy and thrilled to be able to give you that plan for K-12. So March 22nd, thanks to the hard work of so many people within the district, we are going to be able to return to all students who want to be here, grades K-5 for everyday in-person instruction. Like jumping up and down when we're saying this. April 5th, grades 6 through 12, every middle school and high schooler who opt for in-person instruction the day after spring break. And again, as Mr. Carlson mentioned, with the transportation survey, we hope to receive an answer from parents and guardians by tomorrow as to whether or not all remote or full in-person is the choice for their son or daughter. I know a number of parents were waiting for additional information at this evening's board meeting. The next slide, just some additional pieces of information. Mr. Carlson had said this, but it's important to reiterate. Because we believe in multiple layers of mitigation, when students are unmasked, they will need to be 6 feet apart. So principals, again, are going to need to adjust what lunch and snack looks like, especially K-5. This is really important as well. So we're asking teachers again to make a shift. They're happy to make this shift. They want students back, but they might need some planning time. So we might need to have an asynchronous day or asynchronous days, maybe at the K-5 level prior to implementation. So work will be posted, but there will not be live instruction on that day, because if you think about it, teachers now need to rework their entire classrooms. So not just, we now need to bring more desks back into the classrooms. The barriers need to be put on, the supplies that go along. I mean, right now at the K-5 level, I know a number of teachers have supplies labeled with cohort A and cohort B. All of those systems need to be reworked. So it's important that we give teachers the time to do that. Another implication of being able to bring back students on the 22nd and the 5th is that K-5 report cards were due that week. Teachers, especially at the K-5 level, put in a tremendous amount of time, given especially how we revamped the report cards a couple of years ago. So we will be pushing back the report card release date until after spring break at least, and we can report back on a definitive timeline for that. But that just relieves that task and allows teachers at the K-5 level to focus on welcoming their students back on the 22nd.
Dr. Gosh, I'm going to let you take a breath while you get to the next slide. I just want to let the board know that we've asked so much of our teachers, our staff, our administration this year, and they have not missed a beat. They just said, what more can we do? How can we make this better? So I just wanted to say that. Thank you, Dr. Gosh.
Thank you. Sorry, the next slide, just a few, I'm sorry, I think there was one more in between that, or was that the? Nope, okay. There is one exception that we would like to share tonight for Brewster High School. So we have a number of students who are involved in either the musical or who are involved in fall two or spring sport. And we've received a number of inquiries from parents saying, if my son or daughter gets quarantined, they will miss out on their senior year activity, or they'll miss out on this activity that they haven't been able to really participate in in school for a year. So what we're doing for Brewster High School only is all students throughout the district can still start in person and go to all remote, right? That's the way it's always been. What we are allowing for Brewster High School is for Q3 and Q4 to be separate choices. So hypothetically, a student could choose all remote Q3 and then come in person Q4. And again, this allows for students to be able to engage in those school-sponsored extracurricular activities that we know are so important to their developmental health. They are in high school, they don't get many more of these opportunities to represent their school, and we feel as though it's the right thing to do. Now, we can only do this at Brewster High School because Brewster High School has the physical space and the flexibility to do that, where the other buildings don't. K-5, we can't even talk about switching teachers again. We have to entertain that conversation now. The middle school is tight in terms of space, so it'd be very difficult to be able to make that change at the middle school, but the high school, Mrs. Horler and her team feel as though that this is, and I do as well, that this is the right move and that we can make it work at Brewster High School only.
And I have to say, our PTAs at the high school always reminds me that our seniors this year have missed a full year. So I'm glad that we're able to do that at the high school.
I believe the final slide. Okay, this is what we have to say, because again, we it's difficult to operate in absolutes. So we're confident that we can do this. However, if there are circumstances that arise that are outside of our control, let's say the infection rates skyrocket, we may need to pull back. If there are staffing shortages for one reason or another, that shouldn't necessarily be an issue because a number of our staff are getting vaccinated. That won't be as big of an issue as it was, let's say, in the fall or winter, but it still could happen. Or if the delivery of PPE, like the barriers, do not come in on time. Again, we think we've built in enough time. We're confident that we can do this. If there are circumstances outside our control, we may need to adjust. We just need to say that in order to make sure the community knows that we're looking at all circumstances that could arise. Right. And finally, we just wanted to say thank you. This has been, I know, very challenging for families and for parents, as well as it's been challenging for our staff. We thank you for those who wanted to re-engage through the subcommittee, for those who submitted questions, and we all have the same objective, and we're happy that we'll be able to welcome back our students for full in-person instruction on a timely basis. Thank you.
Dr. Gosh, thank you again for the incredible work you're doing. Thank you.
I know we say thank you a lot, but it's never enough. So yes, I echo the sentiment as well, and I'm glad that we're doing just everything we can, and it changes every day, and we're just doing our best. And I know the board recognizes that everyone in the district is doing their best, and we appreciate the input from our parents, the community as well, to just help in the process. So yeah, thank you. Okay, yes, Do you want to? Sure, absolutely. No, go ahead.
So just a couple quick questions. And I understand some of these aren't necessarily easy to answer, and there's a lot of other agencies who are working on this. So especially because we had such a robust testing protocol that we went through here, has there been any talk or any consideration by whether it's Putnam County or the state to allow people to start testing students to start testing out of quarantine? I know that when there's, if you were to travel out of state, you were normally subject to quarantine upon your return, but they did allow for some testing. And I don't know if there's been any talk of anything along those lines.
I've not heard anything. Have you, Dr. Gosh, in your meetings?
No, I haven't heard anything. I do know that the concern is when there's a potential exposure and when someone has been identified as a contact, they sort of hold that in a different regard in terms of, as compared to someone who has traveled. So if someone is a potential contact, they feel like it's serious enough where symptoms could develop. You could test negative after day 5, but then be positive day 10. So I think that's sort of their rationale, but nothing has been brought up recently about adjusting that.
Okay. And you mentioned briefly the idea of kids being able to come back to in-person for extracurriculars. Does the learning choice impact students' participation in extracurricular activities?
Great question. So at the high school level, there has been guidance that has said that if a student can participate in extracurricular activities regardless of their learning choice. So we couldn't preclude anyone from who, let's say if someone wanted to be all remote, they can come in and participate in athletics, for example, because that's explicitly stated in the guidance.
And I think that the last thing, I mean, obviously Sonia has spoken on behalf of the board, but I cannot say enough how impressed that I am as a parent and as a board member as to the work that's been done here. This administration's commitment to getting these kids back to school has been evident since day one and has been a ton of work to get there. And I thank you for that. Anybody who's been paying attention knows that the work that needed to be done did not happen in a Facebook chat, did not happen online. It was done by the people who came to work here every single day and made the best of what we could do as we could do it. And for that, I say thank you very much to everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Benson.
Question. For kids who are who elect to come in full-time and get caught in a quarantine, will they then be able to Zoom during their quarantine?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. If it's a quarantine situation, yes.
Okay. And then for
and you're talking secondary level, correct? Middle school, high school?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And then you mentioned with respect to quarantining that, if a class is over, if exposure is greater than an hour, that's a killer. So I think in the high school, the kids were asked, 4 classes a day or 8 classes a day, and the 4 classes are obviously longer than an hour. So wouldn't that the rule sort of push toward doing an 8 period day?
So the Department of Health just shared this afternoon that would not be, it's not a hard and fast number. So if there's 66-minute periods, it wouldn't automatically mean everybody has to quarantine. All the other circumstances would still be taken into account. What they did say that if there were multiple exposures throughout the day, so if it was a lab period or if there were multiple classes with that infectious individual, then that would be sort of kick it up to the next notch. But it's definitely not a deal breaker the way it was in the past.
So the high school there hasn't been a decision yet on how.
Not yet. I know Mrs. Horler and her team shared a document that I have not yet to look at, but where they weighed some of the pros and cons and shared some of the feedback. So we'll be engaged in those discussions. The number of students that elect to come back, I don't know that will have a direct impact on it, but it's all data that we'll take in order to make it a decision.
And then I just, one more question about the timing. I mean, we have the middle kick, I guess it's 6 through 12 coming back right after spring break. Was there any consideration of delaying that? Because I think, obviously people go away and go and then there's not enough time to quarantine. So if you have people going away, we've had this problem, you know, Thanksgiving, Christmas, every other time. So I just wondered if there was any thought given to that.
Yeah, and that's a tough one because I don't know that anyone thought we'd be coming back right on April 5th. And so I understand it and I get the point. We are operating under we want to bring students back as quickly as we can. And this was the way we could do this. And if we, thought about, or if, when looking at the calendar, I think April 11th maybe is that Sunday of break, right? 11th? I'm sorry, it'd be the 4th, and 4th. We would be looking into the week of the 12th when we would technically, because you could develop symptoms, I guess 10 days after. I guess you could test out of quarantine as well. But so we were operating under the premise of getting students for in-person instruction as quickly as possible. What we will and what we're planning on doing is sending out some clarifying information for families who plan to travel, what the quarantine requirements are, and making sure that there's adherence to the daily health screener for students and for staff.
Thanks.
Yeah. Can I just follow up with that one? So, you addressed if students are out because they're quarantined by possible, potential exposure, they can zoom into a class. But if that, just for that particular week, if people go away, it's Easter weekend right there and they're flying back. I mean, right now the state still says 3 days, 4th day test. So if parents choose, because they would also need to keep their kids home, in that scenario, I'm assuming they can also zoom in for those days if they're in, just because they're choosing to keep them home. There's no reason to, other than the state guideline telling them to. Not that the school's mandating them to, right, through the potential exposure.
Right, so they're adhering to quarantine protocols, right?
Right.
And
So
it's different from a school imposed quarantine or Putnam County Department of Health. Honestly, I need to work that through the principal. We need to work that through the principals, if that's all right. I know, again, that might have a different impact 9/12 than it does K2. So if we can also push that out in our weekly COVID update, so families are fully aware and we can just work through all those eventualities.
Yeah, I could look into that too. Yes,
Okay.
because if some families just want to be proactive and follow the
Right.
travel guidance, which you're going to obviously be sharing, they're going to have to they potentially have to keep their kids home depending when they come back. So, okay.
So just to kind of point what you guys are saying, I know in October I had to travel out of the country, and this was something that I had reached out to the school, the administration, the high school administration, because my brother we had to quarantine when we came back. So I think just giving that information to the parents, I mean, I think everybody is going to be very diligent and be cautious when they're traveling out, just like I did. I mean, we all quarantined, we followed the guidelines. And in this case, my brother, I mean, he did everything remotely. We followed up with the teachers and everything went smoothly. So I'm confident that our parents who are traveling for spring break will be able to do that. That way we don't have to extend another week or so to bring back our kids. I just had 2 questions. One of them, so when bringing back, so more so like the middle schoolers and the high schoolers, how will it look in the hallway as each class is ending, since there'll be more kids now than there was before?
Right, good question. So the middle school, and we've had these discussions, the middle school is a unique building in a lot of ways. It's kind of funky, the layout. And so we talked about what would it look like to have one-way hallways. And it would take students forever to get from one part of the building to another. So what we have gone with is the hallways be split down the middle, these strictly enforced. We'll have 2-way traffic, but it will be much more organized than a typical middle school hallway in years past. And we'll make sure that works. The high school, the same sort of thing. I know there are 1-way staircases that will still be in adherence, as well as the line down the middle that delineates which way to go. I will also say yes, there will be increased social density in the hallway, but students will be masked, and it will be for 3 to 4 minutes tops, which is better than more than that, more than 10 minutes.
So my second question was regarding the health screening form for parents that are choosing for full-time in person. So just a reminder, every day then, the parents will fill out the forms, correct?
Yes, and we'll get a
Okay.
reminder every morning for those who are signed up for full in-person instruction. Yes, we would ask for that daily submission. Thank you.
And if I can just follow up, that, if your child's sick, please keep them home. So, please be honest on the health screening. We know that everybody is, but it's so important. Thank you, Dr. Bosch.
I just have one question. In regards to the proximate contact, at this point, we're not taking barriers into that.
I had this in my notes, but didn't say it. So barriers assist us in fitting more students in a given space within the guidelines, but it does not prevent quarantining of those close contacts or proximate contacts. That's not barriers as is defined in the guidance, and as explained to us, it would be like the floor to ceiling. So I'm thinking like the middle school gym with the curtain across, that's floor to ceiling. That's a barrier that would say, okay, both sides of the gym would not need to quarantine. But the barriers themselves would, again, allow us to have more students in a space within the guidelines, but would not necessarily prohibit or count towards students not having to quarantine.
And to the extent that, especially I would imagine in the high school, the classrooms are not always full. So to the extent that you have a classroom with so few kids in it that they could actually be 6 feet apart, will teachers, be encouraged to make that happen to minimize the possibility of quarantine?
Great question. So we, this week, are working on some sort of best practice guidance to share with our staff in anticipation of welcoming back students for full in-person instruction. So that will be in there. If 6 feet is possible, do 6 feet, as well as some of the information regarding airflow and seating charts, because as important as they are on the bus, they're even more important in the classroom, so that we know who was seated where, and are they close or are they proximate. So all that information will be going out to staff this week.
And also at the Safety, Health, and Emergency Planning meeting this morning, Mr. Carlson had pointed out that his Director of Facilities, Mr. Fryer, will be going into every classroom with principals and talk to the teachers just to find out what would be the best possible arrangement.
I just have one more question about the proximate contacts. I know it's been in the news lately that putting air purifiers with HEPA filters in crowded classrooms would be a factor into it. Is Putnam County recognizing that? Is that something we would do for our rooms that might be more crowded?
So I know that they have talked about MERV 13, which our facilities were not capable of implementing, even if we had $6 million to do it. But they haven't necessarily said anything about HEPA filters, but I can find out for sure. They have stressed that, that airflow, but I will find out for sure if that is a consideration, especially in areas that might not have ideal spacing or ventilation.
Just do like hearing the option for the students participating in sports and plays to be able to come back. Are we going to require testing to test back in when they're done, either with the sport or the play, to get back in for the fourth quarter?
We hadn't spoken about that, and I know that the guidance states that we can't mandate anything, but we can definitely re-engage those conversations, especially as we have more information on what the number of cases that we may or may not have in the building or in the buildings, as well as the local infectivity rate. We can definitely revisit that conversation to see if, while we can't mandate, we can encourage for people to test at that time.
And with the default day being, I guess, the 10th, if you're past the 10th, are we making the decision for the people? Just saying on the 11th, you were in distance, you're still in distance, you're in hybrid, you're in person. If you don't get a response.
Yeah, we would try and follow up with additional communications, but we don't know. I guess there's a couple of steps. So we would try to have additional communications and reach out to parents individually. I know that certain buildings have designated some staff to do that. We also would look and see the people that have not yet responded, or their commonalities. Are they all remote? Are they hybrid? Are they, from a certain grade level or building, and then take whatever strategic steps we need to get that. I don't know that we would automatically put them in one learning choice or another. If we couldn't make contact and we had to, I guess we'd have to cross that bridge and speak to our attorneys when we get to that.
Okay. And so I heard that the senior prom is planned. I don't know if this is the conversation for it. Is there any thought to the junior prom? In the past, don't know if that fits into the whole scheduling thing.
At this point, just because of the safety and health factor, we're looking at the senior prom the day before graduation, and we're hoping to be able to test all the students before the prom. So we're really just at this point just focusing on the senior prom because the seniors have missed so much this year. So we're moving very carefully with any events.
And with the play that will be coming in, not having heard anything yet, I guess, are the students, will they be participating in masks? Will there be any audience allowed to come in? Because I know there are severe restrictions on sporting events. I didn't know if that pertained to the play as well.
Yes, so the students are, all the safety precautions, we vetted the whole process a month or so ago with Dr. Pissarro. And what we decided at that time was that there would be no, we wouldn't be able to have an audience because it was really about the kids and giving them this experience. But I can circle back with Ms. Perdico and Mrs. Forler and share an update on where we are with that and what the exact parameters look like.
Maybe something where they let there be a senior night for the parents, maybe just some of the senior kids. We could have maybe not two, one kid, and hopefully we would have enough space to spread them out. So at least one senior parent could participate if safe and allow. And I would also like to follow up with everybody else has said. I appreciate all the work that goes into this daily changing item. And if it's not said enough, I don't care what it says. Thank you to everybody involved.
Thank you, Mr. Seaman, and we'll look into those questions you have.
Okay, thank you. I forgot, yep. Next up, we have Brewster Vision 2025.
So do you want to say anything about equity? We had equity.
Did I miss it? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I had notes written right over it.
Sure, I didn't know if I had the order out, which I figured I did.
Equity, thank you.
Okay, so a quick equity update. March 1st, our Professional Learning Day, we introduced the culturally responsive framework, which is put out by the New York State Education Department to our staff at large. Our keynote speaker was Ms. Stephanie Carnes, a licensed clinical social worker who used to work at Putnam, Northern Westchester BOCES. She shared what the framework looks like through the eyes of a multilingual learner. So after that keynote session, teams of administrators and staff who are some who are part of the root cause team and some who are champions of the equity work, co-facilitated learning groups across the buildings to make sense of and sort of process the framework from their own context. So I would just like to thank our professional learning team for their framing of the day and their very relevant and meaningful feedback that they give always, as well as Ms. Christian Hernandez, our middle school assistant principal, and Mrs. Alicia Manguso, our E&L specialist and middle school E&L teacher. They developed a lesson plan or lesson template that all of the facilitators of those groups followed, and we received rave reviews on just being able to sit with colleagues and process it through and see what this work could mean to us. So in addition to that, we continue our root cause and culturally responsive training with NYU with the goal of a long-term strategic plan for equity in the district. That concludes my comments on equity. Thank you.
Thank you. Good, now we have Brewster Vision 2026.
So we have officially changed the name to Brewster Vision 2026. So thank you, Mr. Trelaw, for changing that on the website because we were not able to get together in person and we want to get together in the fall in person and start with that energy put together that 5-year plan. So Vision 2026.
So used to saying 25. Okay, we now move on to our 2021-22 budget presentation, enrollment and staffing. Dr. Van Lowe, we have the whole crew's up tonight.
Yep. The whole team's on this one.
Okay,
Okay. All right, so Mr. Carlson, may I start?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so Chris, could you go to the second slide? So this evening, we want to talk to you about our 2021-2022 budget development. And I want to highlight the priorities for the district. We have been listening to our community, our board, our teachers, our staff. So first and foremost, we're going to continue to provide transparency through the Budget 101 presentations and information on our website that Mr. Carlson does so well with his team. Also to comply with the tax cap for the 10th consecutive year and address any new mandates or any mandates that are not being met presently in the district. So we will continue to be sure that we are covering those things, maintaining the staff level that we've attained over the last 2 years with all of us working together. Also, we want to continue to attract high quality candidates to replace our retiring instructional staff members. We have a lot of veteran staff, really great staff that will be retiring, and we're happy for them to move off into their next chapter in their life. And I want to thank Dr. Harrington. He had a whole crew of administrators going out to our hiring diversity fair. So we have a huge number of candidates. I'm sure he'll highlight that at some point tonight that we'll be looking at. Also, we want to be sure that we add teaching positions to lower class sizes. Class size is critically important to all of us. We are hearing everyone in the community, and especially at JFK and CV Star. And strengthen the academic and social emotional practices and programs in the district. And as Dr. Gasha said, this needs to be intentional, and we'll talk about that more as we progress through the slides this evening. And provide summer catch-up and enrichment using the Every Student Succeeds Act funding. So we'll be using grant funding to help to close any of those achievement gaps that we are concerned about with our students because of the pandemic. And building a strong foundation for developing Vision 2026. It is critical that we come together in person to create this 5-year plan. It's not just the vision of the school community, it's the vision of the entire Brewster community. And also we are working with NYU, doing wonderful work. We just kicked that off this year. So we want to make sure that we implement a strategic plan that will live on into the future for equity in the district for all of our students. So, Mr. Carlson.
Next slide, please. So this evening, we're going to be talking, of course, about enrollment and staffing. Whenever we talk about our expenditure budget, we always recognize that because we are a service organization, salaries and benefits make up the majority of our budget, with staffing alone making up nearly 50% of that budget. We've done a pretty, in my opinion, we've done a pretty good job of breaking our presentations up into manageable pieces. So tonight we're just going to be focused on staffing. Dr. Banlow mentioned we do have a significant number of educators who are retiring at the end of this year. And while we're certainly going to be missing that institutional knowledge and professionalism that they brought to the district, it also allows the district the ability to replace those positions at obviously new staff level expenses. So that's certainly a theme that drove the budget for next year. Next slide, please. So we're going to talk about our staffing recommendations. Of course, this is a pre-pandemic picture from last year. And of course, unfortunately, we weren't able to get together in the same manner. We're hoping that we're able to get back there very close in the very near future. Dr. Gosh, I'm going to ask you to jump in and go over our staffing slides.
Thank you, Mr. Carlson. All right, the next slide, please, Mr. Welling, if you wouldn't mind. All right, so here's what we are looking to do. This is how we're operationalizing the priorities that we have outlined in previous slides. So we're going to begin with JFK. Last summer, we added, I believe it was in July, we added an additional kindergarten section. We were getting nervous that the numbers were climbing, and we needed to make a timely decision so that Mr. Conroy and Dr. Zamperlin could put their plan into action. So we added that kindergarten position, and we're glad we did. We are proposing an additional section at second grade. This will help with class sizes, which will be reflected in subsequent slides, but it is aligned with our goal of making sure that we have manageable class sizes moving into next year, especially at the K-5 level. Okay, this next slide outlines some additional FTE that we are discussing. Before we get to that, we should mention the teaching assistants. We came to you, I believe, in November, asking for some additional staff in order to help with the synchronous environment at the middle school and at CV Star. We are thinking that those positions would not need to be included in the budget for next year, but we are asking for an additional 1.5 FTE in 2 new positions. And we're very excited about this. I'll try not to go on and on because these have just been, ideas that we've all been kicking around and are a reflection of what we believe the student needs are. So the first is a 1.0 guidance and social emotional wellness specialist. So we'll start with the first 0.5 of that, which is the guidance specialist. So we are required to have a K-12 guidance plan. We have one, but this person would revise and implement that K-12 guidance plan. What we would really want this person to do would be build on existing relationships with post-high school institutions and cultivate new relationships with colleges and universities, with trade unions, with trade schools, in order for our students to have the best possible opportunity. Our profile, like the Brewster High School profile, is pretty unique. The curricular opportunities we have, you saw it with NJROTC, what our students do for the community, the ways that our students are able to affect change. Like, this is a really unique place, and I don't think we sell ourselves well enough, especially to colleges and to universities and any sort of post-high school organization that our students might be interested in. So this person would really be tasked with building on the existing relationships, forming new relationships in order to give our students the best possible opportunity. All we need to do is to say, hey, take a look at our high school profile, and take a look at this student. You need to get 1 or 2 students in, they're successful, and it opens the door for additional students. The other concern that we've been thinking about is, the last year, students haven't been able to be as active as they have in years past. So when students are going to apply to colleges, their resumes might look a little bit different. We need someone to get out in front of that and to work with those students and to say, okay, how can we help you put your best foot forward? What are some ways that we can make sure you're doing the best to reflect what it is you have to offer to an institution after Brewster High School? So we're really excited for that 0.5 piece. The other 0.5 of this is a social emotional wellness specialist. And I said it before when we talked about the sharing out of the social emotional learning subcommittee. We need to be as intentional about our students' mental health and social emotional growth as we are about their academic achievement and growth. And this position would really help us enact all the research that we know is out there that says that how a student feels when they enter a learning environment, how they feel about their own efficacy as a learner, the way in which they have their own self-perception, that all impacts academic outcomes as well as their own social emotional wellness, mental health, and overall even physical health. So what we need to do is, we have a lot of great resources in this district. We need help coordinating all of that. We need someone to really say, okay, what sort of vocabulary is being used when at the K2 level, when we're talking about dealing with adversity or figuring out how to manage emotions. And is that the same at 3-5? What sort of assured experiences are students having? Have we identified what sort of traits and attributes we want students to be able to exhibit from a social emotional perspective, and to be able to coordinate that across the district? I also think we need to have a conversation about some sort of inventory or some sort of assessment that we give to students with parents' consent, so that we get a gauge as to how we can help students long-term. Something that we've talked about in the subcommittees is that there's a real sense of trauma or loss from this past year that students are feeling. So that could be from someone physically losing a loved one. It could be just from a loss of normalcy, what students have been able to not experience in a typical childhood. We need to help sort through all that. And I think this position can help us sort of figure that out and be really, help us be really intentional about the supports that we provide and the way that we go about fostering the social emotional wellness of our students. So that's that 1.0 position. The second position is a 0.5. So this is someone who will be, we're calling it academic intervention specialist. But this would be, again, both of these positions would be on the teacher line, by the way. We're not asking for another administrator. But we know that academic gaps exist. What this person would do is would really get into the data. So in aggregate, what are we seeing in terms of learning gaps across the continuum? And if there are a number of students that fall within a specific standard that's not being met, we need to adjust our tier 1 curriculum to make sure that we're not just meeting the needs that year, but then looking at it vertically over time and that articulation that needs to take place. We also need someone who can work with, one of the strengths of this district is our MTSS process, which is really well established in buildings. We need someone to help take that to the next level. So what happens in those meetings is, besides looking at data in aggregate, they're drilling down and say, this student is struggling. What information do we have about this student? What strengths do they have that we can leverage in order to help them succeed? And then to be able to think about what sort of interventions can be done in the classroom, even pushing in with teachers to help deliver those interventions. And then thinking about what additional supports that we can give moving forward. So that would be a 0.5 academic intervention specialist, again, on the teacher line, and someone that will help us take our interventions to the next level.
So also added for this year, 1.4 FTEs of part-time cleaners. We had them assigned to split between the high school and JFK, and also another split between Wells Middle School and CB Star. We plan on continuing with those part-time cleaners to make sure that we obviously address those high-touch services. The feedback that we've gotten from parents and from staff is, just their appreciation for the cleanliness of the buildings, which obviously is very important as we continue throughout the end of this pandemic. We will, of course, evaluate these positions throughout the 21-22 school year.
So a summary of our staffing overall, we have 3.5 positions on the instructional side and 1.4 on the non-instructional as recommended into next year's budget. Okay, so part of how we get into making these decisions, one of the key factors from the instructional side is to look at enrollment and average class size. So in the next set of slides, you'll see where we are currently in terms of the number of sections. And here you can see on the JFK slide. So the left side of your screen is where we are currently in terms of grade level, sections, the number of students we had on Beds Day, and what the average class size is. Here we're projecting over into next year, which of course informs our staffing recommendations. So here, this is important to know. This is obviously an unusual year. When we're projecting forward, we're using the hard data that we have in front of us in order to make these projections. The one exception to that is with kindergarten. We're using the demographer's enrollment projection, which has us at 208 students incoming for kindergarten. We have not yet started kindergarten registration. We'll have that actual data into the spring. Again, as we do every year with kindergarten, and really now we need to look, especially K-5, we need to keep an eye on what these enrollments look like over time in order to make sure that we're responsive in keeping with our priority of having of lowering class size. As I mentioned, we're proposing that we add a second grade section. So now we'll have 10 across the board. That again will bring down that class size to 20.5. And just for your reference, the class sizes at JFK in terms of kindergarten is 18 to 22. I know this like the back of my hand, but of course at this moment I can't find it. I believe it's 18 to 22 and 22 to 20 or 21 to 24 in first grade, but I will get back to it. No, it's 18 to 22 kindergarten and first grade. Okay, second grade is where we get into 21 to 24. Please save me and go to the next slide. Thank you. Okay, the intermediate school. So we, after looking again at the hard numbers that we have in each grade level, we are proposing that we keep the grades 3, 4, and 5 at 9 sections for next year. This falls again within nice class size numbers. Third grade is 21 to 24. That's our class size policy. Fourth and fifth grade is 23 to 27. So we do have, we want to keep class sizes at this level. Again, we will make sure that we continue to monitor enrollment as we move into the spring and summer months. Onto the middle school. We also brought broke this out by grade level, and it gets more difficult at the middle school level. The number of sections change based on certain English courses that are offered, certain math courses that are offered. Here we are sticking with 10 to 11 sections projected into 6th grade next year. Similar number in 7th grade to this year, 12 to 13. And you'll see the difference that we have a larger 8th grade class that's moving up to the high school. So the middle school is projecting that they will have 12 core class sections. And what that will allow them to do is to take that take that FTE and put it into things like academic support classes and electives at the middle school, while keeping class sizes at a manageable level. The class size guidelines at the middle school and at the high school also is 25 to 30. On to Brewster High School. So this gets very difficult to predict. The way that we have shared this and are presenting it tonight is to give you the current numbers. So these are the number of students that are enrolled in seats in these core classes and the number of sections. So some of these sections are full year courses, some are semester-based courses, but this is the average class size at Brewster High School. And we'll say it is important to note that because of the individualized pathways that students pursue at the high school, you'll see some AP courses that have lower class sizes, but it's still important to offer, as is support classes that we'll see at the high school as well. So in projecting forward to next year, the difference between the number of students leaving us as seniors and the number of incoming 9th graders is about 13 students. So while we don't know which courses are going to be offered, because that is a whole master scheduling and course request process, we know that the staffing levels are remaining the same, and we're feeling good about where the class size numbers are for the high school as well.
So this is very encouraging. I just want to share my personal take on it. Just as we approach this budget, obviously there was a lot of concern going into this budget season. The fact that we're able to recommend staffing increases to help students is just, it's incredible. Proposition number 2 is being asked for the board's consideration this evening. This is just a quick recap of what we presented back in January, with actually a few updates. So of course, the requested borrowing remains the same, $750,000 to purchase 6 buses and 1 facilities vehicle. An update in terms of our transportation aid ratio. In 21-22, our aid ratio is actually increasing. So the district is actually going to receive more state aid for these payments. Now it's actually tipped the scale. So the state is actually footing more of the bill than the district actually is with these purchases. So the first of the 5 annual payments is due into the 22-23 school year. So we defer those payments for another year. There's no impact on the 21-22 budget. As we've presented over the past few years in our long-range financial planning, this new debt will be replacing an older debt that falls off the books, which minimizes the impact on our homeowners. So the projected annual cost is about $80,000 net of the state aid, again, updated with our new transportation aid ratio. And the incremental annual cost to the average Southeast and Patterson homeowner is just $3 and $2 respectively. Next slide, please. So we're about midway through. We have our community budget forum next Tuesday night. We sent out a Bears backpack last week. We'll send out a reminder this week. 2 more budget presentations until our second community budget forum. And then the board is being asked to adopt the budget on April 20th, the budget hearing May 11th, and of course the annual budget vote and trustee election Tuesday, May 18th. First, next slide. So I've included the link to the budget forum. Again, we'll push this out through Bears Backpack. Chris, next slide. And of course, please visit our website for all of our previous presentations. That concludes our presentation for this evening.
Thank you, Victor, and everyone else that presented. You know how you sometimes say they're so long, and this was a great presentation. We were, I think, all engaged and very informative. So thank you so much. I don't know if anyone had any questions or anything you wanted to comment on.
Just a quick question, Dr. Gosh. On the PPS, those two new positions, are those positions that exist in the world of education, or are those positions that we have created at our naming?
Good question. So I think we've created them with the guidance and social emotional wellness specialists. We would be looking for someone with a guidance counselor, school counselor background and certification. And for the other position, we would be looking at a certified teacher, maybe someone who also has a 0.5 position in the district that we could either make 1.0 or whose teaching position could be backfilled as a result of taking on this work.
Thank you.
If I could just, looking where we were at the beginning of the year to this budget, I mean, it's an incredible, my hats off to Mr. Carlson. Every year, it's amazing how we handle these things. I mean, by comparison's sake, I know it's not apples to oranges, but Carmel is talking of millions of dollars shortfall, and they're looking into laying off a backside people who aren't teaching side. But here we are able to offer the needs of our students while we're staying in budget and tax cap and everything else, whatever the state's going to throw at us in the next 3 months. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Anyone else? No? Okay, thank you. So now we can move on to any public remarks, any emails that we've received, that we may have received related to any action items. No, you're not. No.
None.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll just move right into our action items for tonight. And first up, we have approval of bus vehicle bond proposition. I need to do a roll call vote for this, but if you want to just speak to it quickly first.
So again, this is the annually required referendum vote in order to put the bus bond proposition forth to the voters on May 18th.
Okay, thank you. And we previously also had a presentation on this, so I think we're good to go. First I need a motion, actually, I'm sorry. Carrie, thank you. A second. Eric, thank you. Questions or comments on this item? No? Okay, so we'll just go around. Carrie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Francine?
Yes.
Daisy?
Yes.
And Jason?
Yes.
And myself, Sonia, yes. So with none opposed, motion passes 7-0. Just checking with Lauren to make sure she recorded it individually, and we're good to go. Okay. Thank you. Next up is action item number 2, resolution to rescind memorandums of agreement with private schools, Longview School and Green Chimneys, approved August 18, 2020.
Yes, so back in August, we received guidance from the federal government with regard to CARES Act allocations to private schools within our catchment. Subsequent guidance actually reduced the amount that the district is required to distribute to those non-public schools. So before, we were required to distribute a little over $25,000 of ESSER funds. Now it's actually been reduced to just $674. In terms of gear funding, which again is a subset of this CARES Act, before we were required to distribute a little over $4,300. Now we're required to distribute just $114. So it's good for the district that we're able to actually keep more of those CARES Act funds in district. And obviously, we need to now rescind those agreements that we put forth back in August before the updated guidance came out.
Okay, great, thank you. I need a motion, please, for this item.
Gotta make the motion.
Scott, thank you. Francine, I saw your hand go up, so I'll take your second. Questions or comments from the board? All right, seeing none. Gosh, again, my brain's still in Zoom mode, so we can just go to the vote. All those in favor? 7, none opposed. Any opposed? None opposed. Motion passes 7-0. Okay, thank you. Action item number 3, approval of policies, second read, 3600, monitoring of Brewster Central School District social media accounts.
Yes, one policy up for second read approval tonight. This, you'll remember that the board sent this policy to the policy committee for feedback after discussing it in detail at the January 12th board meeting. We shared that feedback last board meeting at the February 23rd, and we're again putting it forward for a second read.
Thank you so much. I need a motion for this item, please. Daisy, thank you. And a second. Jason, thank you. Questions or comments from the board? None, seeing none. Okay, we can, all those in favor? 7, opposed, none. Motion passes 7-0. Okay, action item number 4, approval of MOA for winter, fall 2, and spring season coaching.
Yes, thank you. So this memorandum of agreement with our PTA reflects a recognition of the uncertainty this pandemic has imposed on our student athletes and their sports seasons. This agreement acknowledges that should a season be forced to end prior to reaching the midpoint of the defined season due to COVID-related circumstances, the coach's stipend will be adjusted to reflect the reduced compensation. I certainly want to acknowledge and thank the BTA leadership, specifically Ms. Eileen Raiola, the president, and Mr. Andy Kurtz, for their willingness to engage in good faith negotiations, recognizing their role advocating for their members, while understanding these circumstances under COVID have necessitated a measured and objective perspective that is responsible to the larger community. And it's subject for your approval this evening.
Thank you. I need a motion for this item, please. Carrie, back to you. And Jason, thank you for a second. Questions or comments on this item?
It could, down the specifics, if it goes past half a season, it's the full payment. If it's less than half, it's 3/4. So it's not split up. If it goes a quarter, it gets a quarter, it goes 3/4. It's 3/4 or all of it once half time.
That's correct.
Okay.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? That's 6, opposed, 1. Motion passes 6 with 1 opposed. Okay, action item number 5, approval of separation agreement and release with SEIU with employee number 2726.
Yes, this reflects a confidential settlement with employee 2726.
Thank you. I need a motion for this item, please. Eric, thank you. A second. Scott, thank you. Questions or comments on this item? All right, seeing none. All those in favor? 6 opposed and 1 abstention. Motion passes 6 with 0 with 1 abstention. Okay. Okay, action item number 6, approval of MOA with BTA regarding 2 superintendent conference days.
Thank you. Action items 6 and 7 are related. Action item number 6 has to do with an MOA with the BTA. So our current contract language with the BTA stipulates that if we would like to bring in teachers before Labor Day, we must do so on the Wednesday and Thursday prior to Labor Day. Since we would like to bring our students back on September 1st next year, prior to Labor Day, we need to ask the teachers to come in before Labor Day as well. So since the contract language specifically says Wednesday and Thursday, we need this agreement that says it can be Monday and Tuesday. So that's what this is put forward for. There will still be 2 conference days. One day will be teacher directed as outlined in the contract, and the other will be district directed. And we also thank the BTA leadership for their agreement to this, and we submit it for your approval.
Okay, thank you. I need a motion for this item, please. Francine, thank you. And a second. Daisy, thank you. Questions or comments on this item? Seeing none. All those in favor? 7, none opposed. Motion passes 7-0. Okay, action item number 7, approval of 2021-2022 school district calendar.
Okay, so this is the time of the year that we ask for your approval for next year's district-wide calendar. A few highlights that drove the calendar this year for next year. Given that Labor Day is late on September 6th, and actually Rosh Hashanah begins the evening of September 6th through September 8th. This in combination with the fact that we want to bring our students back as soon as possible, we're asking for the first day of instruction to be prior to Labor Day on September 1st. With the 2 conference days on the 30th and the 31st for staff. So that's September. November, we'll still have parent-teacher conferences on Election Day. We moved our typical professional learning day from October to November 1st with the hope that it's less disruptive overall. So it's 1 week where there's interruptions as opposed to two separate weeks. In December, Christmas Eve is a Friday. So we would have that day off plus the entire next week. You'll see in February, there's a full February break, the last week of the month. March 9th, we are identifying as our Spring Professional Learning Day. And this year, and in many years past, we've had parent-teacher conferences on half days on 2 consecutive Thursdays. We're going to switch that around and just we're proposing that the 21st and the 22nd be back-to-back half days for K-5 for parent-teacher conferences. Again, with the thought that it's less disruptive overall instead of it interrupts 1 week as opposed to 2. April, we have our spring break. A change this year, June 20th is when we will recognize and celebrate Juneteenth. And the last day of school for students and staff is June 24th. So we thank the BTA, the SEIU, and the AAB leadership for their collaboration in the formation of the calendar, as well as Ms. Lauren Truell and her organization of this and getting the conversation going.
Okay, thank you. I need a motion for this item. Eric, thank you. And a second.
Second.
Scott, thank you. Questions or comments on this item?
Can I just make a comment? I want to thank Dr. Gosh and also our district clerk, Laura Jewell. A lot of work goes into the calendar, believe it or not. So I just want to thank both of them.
If I could just say on a side note, I've been looking for this calendar around this time for 20 years. And I came out and I rushed to my wife with it, and she looked at me and goes, "Our daughter's a senior. Why?" So I still look forward to the calendar, but it'll be different.
Takes time. Change takes time. Okay, anyone else?
I also consider my wife puts the calendar in our kitchen along with the other every year she puts the calendar, and she goes to that calendar. Anytime we have to make plans, anything, she goes to that calendar.
You can check our work.
Yeah, so it's very, thank you.
Okay. All those in favor? 7, none opposed, motion passes 7-0. Thank you. Okay, consent agenda.
Okay, just a quick note that we have a number of retirements on this evening's consent agenda, including Ms. Charlotte Olson Ingeman, special education teacher in our high school, Ms. Sherry Durkin, transportations operations assistant, and Ms. Karen DiToronto, clerical support in PPS. We certainly want to wish much congratulations to each of these employees on their forthcoming retirement and many years of good health and leisure. And we certainly look forward to celebrating their years of service to the district in the coming months.
Great, thank you. I need a motion for this item, please. Francine, thank you. And a second. Jason, thank you. Questions or comments? All right, seeing none, all those in favor? 7, none opposed, motion passes 7-0. Okay, we're now on to public remarks again. So this will be any additional emails that came in on any other topics that we didn't cover this evening already. Okay, great, thank you. So as always, just to the community, you are always welcome to email the board at boe@brewsterschools.org. It comes to the board and the superintendent, and we will address them at each board meeting. Okay, now we're on to board remarks. Anyone like to share anything? Are you just double check? Bring it maybe closer to you because I want to make sure that everyone can hear you.
I just wanted to echo what Scott and everybody.
Maybe take it. No, I don't know if we're hearing it.
Am I?
It's on.
It's on. Yeah. I just want to echo what Scott, and just thank you to Dr. Banlow and administrators and Brent and Victor and Dr. Gosh and Lawrence, everybody getting all things done. I've always said, and I don't know when you all sleep and doing and preparing these presentations and reports and fielding emails and calls, and I just don't know how you all do it. I get exhausted just hearing and looking at all the stuff that you all do. And thank you to the parents. I think the parents and the community had a lot to do with a lot, helped a lot and gave a lot of ideas and suggestions how to get the kids into school. And also thank the board for all their input. Thank you very much. And also Mr. Tree Lord.
Just from the legislative side, this time last year, we did approach the the towns and villages to do small budget presentations. And I just wanted to find out from the administration and Mr. Carlson if that's something we should approach them for this year. And if so, just let me know, and when we go to them, we can ask them. It'll have to be obviously much smaller, and we'll have to figure out a way to get them the technology. But if there's any need to approach the groups, we can get the word out on the budget. And the state of the county is this Thursday. Adele will be making the presentation on what's going on in the county, and I've been dialing in. I just wanted to, with the board, so thought thank them for what they've done for us with helping with the Department of Health and the clarifications on issues with the state, and the thought of increasing vaccinations for teachers as available, and just to keep the word out on what's going on with the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Anyone else?
I was just going to mention what Dr. Banlow mentioned before the meeting, is that Section 1 announced for the tournaments that are going on for the winter sports, that they are allowing 2 parents for the senior athletes at home and away games. So I think hopefully, all of the teams I believe are in the tournament, so at least parents of the seniors will be able to experience 1 or 2 games, which is a good development, and hopefully carries over for the fall 2 and spring seasons.
Thank you, Mrs. Cunningham. Yeah, that was hot off the press just this afternoon, so we'll get that out.
Anyone else?
Just one final, I guess not one final reminder, but another reminder from the Brewster Education Foundation that we're continuing our challenge match grant fund drive. $5,000 will be matched. $5,000 worth of donations will be matched by a very generous donator here in the community. All that money is going to go to putting technology in the hands of our students, and any money that is any funds that are collected above $5,000 will go towards funding the scholarships and the end of year programs that we do each year. So we would just really encourage everybody. The deadline date is March 31st. So we'd just love to see as many active participants in that to really help out this directly impacting the lives of the Brewster students. So thank you.
Okay, that's it. Okay, so our next meeting is on the 23rd, I believe, yes, March 23rd. And yep, so that's it for that. And then again, please feel free to reach out to us at any time, send us your thoughts or questions, and we will address them. And we don't have executive session for anything else. So I think we're good. I just need a motion to end the meeting. Carrie, thank you. Scott, wait a second. All those in favor? Motion passes 7-0. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Good night. Thank you for joining us this evening.